Welcome back to the Lost Lennon Tapes. Here's our host, Elliot Mintz.
We're listening to an unreleased blues instrumental we found on one of John Lennon's work tapes. Now, one of the most fascinating things about listening to tapes like this is being able to hear him develop a song from inception to demo. One case in point is a Lennon original titled Tennessee. Now, it's not the same Tennessee some of you may know from the Let It Be sessions. John was inspired to write this one during the mid-70s after reading works by legendary playwright Tennessee Williams. I clearly recall John playing Tennessee for me during one of my visits to the Dakota back then. He was sitting in the White Room at his famous white grand piano.
Here's Elliot Mintz with more of the Lost Lennon Tapes.
In the port city of Liverpool, John was exposed to lots of different musical styles at an early age.
I grew up with blues music, country and western music, which is also a big thing in Liverpool. One of the first visions I ever had is a fully dressed cowboy in the middle of Liverpool with his Hawaiian guitar. You know, that's the first time I ever saw a guitar in my life. He had the full gear on.
As he got older, John became fascinated by the sounds of black American R&B and rock and roll. But like many other young music fans, John discovered the blues by working backward.
I was a rock and roll freak at art school, and I had a friend who was a blues freak. So he turned me on to blues. You know, he was the same age as me, and he understood rock and roll. He knew what Elvis and Fats Domino and Little Richard were all about. But he said, how about this? You know, have you heard, this is where that came from. And I thought, oh, that's where rock and roll. It didn't take my love from rock and roll away, and it also added blues to my consciousness, the real blues.
Mid-50s Liverpool kids who loved black American music owed a debt to the sailors who docked there. The Swabbies helped keep the locals tuned in to the latest in rock and roll, blues, and soul.
The sailors would bring it in. We were hearing old funky blues records in Liverpool that people across Britain or Europe had never even heard because people didn't know about them, only the port areas.
Like the blues as opposed to jazz, you know, white, middle class, good jazz, as opposed to the blues, you know. The blues is better because it's real, you know. It's like, it's not perverted or thought about in a, it's not a concept.
Year one.
Now, during our first year, we've been able to trace the evolution of many songs from John's earliest home composing demos to his completed studio takes. We'll get to some of the latter in our next segment, but right now, let's roll just a few of the solo demos that were big year one favorites for our listeners and those of us who work on the program. This opening track aired on the Lost Lennon tapes in late February, early March. Cut in late November 1966, it's John's earliest known demo.
Tapes roll.
First thing I'm going to play is a cut he did live in the BBC studios way, way, way back in 1963 with a few of his old pals. Unreleased tune from the Lemon archives.